Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. It is so good to be back. Now, if you are new here, thank you so much for tuning in to your first ever episode of this podcast, and I hope you'll definitely come back for another one and another one and another one. And for the regulars, thank you always for tuning in and being notified and always listening. Always appreciate it. Now, if you are unfamiliar, you can follow the podcast on the social media pages at the Root of the Sci Pod on Instagram and Twitter, or you can join the Facebook group at the Root of the Science podcast on Facebook. Most importantly, you can be notified for new episodes on Spotify and Google. Click the notification so that you do not miss any episode ever again. Now, let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Lubabalo Tybosch from South Africa. In this episode, he shares with us how he got into the field of information technology. This was a stepping stone for him starting his own software development company called Uniqova. Lubabalo shares the vision of this company and discusses the real life's ups and downs of creating something from scratch. Lastly, we chat about some of his achievements, one being a well-renowned and multi-award winning Toastmasters International speaker and leader, the second being a 2030 Youth Ambassador for the National Development Plan. Tune in as we hear about all of this and, of course, so much more. Let's go. Hi, Lubabalo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Anne.
It is such a great pleasure. I'm really excited to speak with you today. Now, before we get things started, first things first, can you just give us a brief introduction? Who is Lubabalo? Where are you currently based? And just briefly, what are you doing? What are you all about?
Lubabalo is a young South African who was born in the Northern Cape, in what is known as Worcester, but I grew up in the Eastern Cape in a township called Mlungisi, in a small town called Statai. I have a bachelor's degree in IT management.
Okay, fantastic. All right, we're going to get into everything that you do. We thank you for that brief interview. But before we get into what you're all about, you are a very busy guy, and we're going to get into it later when we delve more deeply into you. And you have a lot of achievements, you've done a lot of things. So I just wanted to ask you, if you could write a book, like an autobiography about yourself, what would the title be?
It's a bit of a difficult question to answer, but I think I would call my book The Unfolding Miracle, because one thing I would like to also share with the audience is that Lubabalo is a survivor. I'm a brain trauma survivor. So at the age of 10, I was unfortunately hit by a take, and I suffered a mild brain trauma. Was in hospital from Saturday when the accident happened during the day, and then I was discharged from the hospital on Monday because apparently they said no, I'll be fine. So my life, in essence, has been a series of miracles. One thing, for example, is the fact that medically, they say when you have suffered brain trauma, you battle to remember things. And my life has been different. I have a great memory. I can recall things, can tell you what happened on the day I was hit by that taxi. Even as I share further about my life and my accomplishments and where I am, you'll get to connect the dots to say, is this guy really someone who has been hit by a taxi and suffered a mild brain trauma? But he's doing so much. So that's why I would call my book The Unfolding Miracle, because each time God does something to show that He's there, He's working in my life, and that despite the fact that I've defied the odds and I'm not living according to what medical reports are saying, I'm achieving things that I'm not supposed to be even achieving because of limitation.
Wow, wow, Lubabalo, what? That is that is amazing. And the title is so apt because, like you said, that is a miracle. And the fact that, like you said, that also just the mere fact that you went in on Saturday and you were out on Monday. I thought you were gonna say I was in hospital for 3 months. Like I never expected that the fact for you to recover in inverted commas so quickly. So in that itself, that's definitely a miracle. And wow, I would buy that book. Like, but I think let's open up this journey so that we can understand this miracle that has happened over your life. So this happened when you were 10 years old, right? So then let's then bring it back to the genesis of young Lubabalo. Did you always know that you would want to get into the science or the technology field? And if so, what were some of those influences that made you be like, this is something that I actually want to do when I grow up?
I kind of knew because, like I mentioned before, I grew up in a place called Statheim. If you look it up on the map, it has been on the news as well for bad behavior. You will see that it's quite a small, undeveloped place. So someone gave me misinformation, and that misinformation tend to be an inspiration for me. So a cousin of mine actually shared with me that Mark Shuttleworth, I'm sure you know who Mark Shuttleworth is.
Yes, the
Yeah,
astronaut,
the
South African
astronaut,
astronaut.
first guy to go to space in Africa. She shared with me that Mark Shuttleworth is from Statheim, and I did not do due diligence of actually checking the fact to see whether is this true or not. And when I was reflecting on this, I realized that this was actually the first seed that was planted in me that got me excited and thinking outside the box that, okay, someone from Statheim has actually made a name for himself. He's the first person to go to space. So that got me interested in sciences and technology.
It's funny how, like you said, that even though you didn't do due diligence, but just the mere fact that you had like some sort of visible role model or somebody who you could relate to, um, that was what sort of ignited that flame for you. Am I right? So then, okay, Mark Shuttleworth is an astronaut, right? Like we've established that. Did you want to be an astronaut? What did you want to do when you found this interesting piece?
Because I then got to learn about Einstein and the great things he had achieved. So then that also became my inspiration to say, okay, there are people like Albert Einstein who did great things, who changed the world, who were difference makers. And I wanted to be a scientist. I studied I got to high school and I was doing science, higher grade, and yeah, science and I were not best friends. So yeah, eventually I gave up on my dream of being a scientist because science was just not working with Lubabalo at all. So from there, I was honestly not sure what I wanted to be because my dream of being a scientist had been tarnished. So my sister is a year ahead of me. She was then doing HR management her first year, and I was doing my grade 12 or matric. So I asked her what she's studying, and she said HR management. And then I opted for HR management, right? So I never had the opportunity to actually do career guidance because I grew up in Stockholm, studied there for a while. I then moved to Queenstown when I'm not sure what they call it now, but when I was in grade 7, I moved to Queenstown to a new school where I was the following year, which is grade 8. I was then inducted as a prefect. And then I then moved from there because grade 8 was the highest grade they had. I then went to Queen's College Boys High School, one of Eastern Cape's well-renowned schools. So I never got a chance to do career guidance. When I got to university, I was supposed to do HR management. During the induction week, the person who was doing the induction asked a question to say who's doing BCom IT. And one guy raised up his hands and the lady responded, "Oh, you guys don't want money." And in honest fact, that is what triggered me to go to go towards the IT route. Because that lady said, "You guys don't want money." I was like, "You money." So I then inquired and they said, "No, you've been accepted. You can go for any course you want." So I went for IT. But when then I started reminiscing or reflecting, and I realized that at home we had a PC and I was already interested in the PC, playing games, trying to fix the PC whenever I can. So it made sense why IT was the right career for me. It was there all along. It's just that I never realized until the lady said, "You guys don't want money."
I love how you said that the money was a bit of a driving factor, or the fact that you heard that you could get money was a driving factor, because sometimes we don't know these things, and I think many of us, I know for me, when I was doing my degree, I'm in agriculture, they were like, "Oh no, in agriculture you can make money, you can be a farmer," and I was like, "Money, okay, cool." So I hear you. I definitely relate to that. And it's quite cool that you said that for you though, already you were already curious about IT and information technology. So that's pretty interesting. So we're going to fast forward it a little bit. It's quite beautiful that you started that genesis, and then you finally went and you started this whole idea of you going into IT. So currently you actually founded your own company. You are the CEO of Uniqova, a software development company. Congratulations. So I just wanted to ask you, how did that go about in terms of you establishing your own enterprise or your own business? And what are some of those highs and lows in starting your own thing, if you don't mind sharing?
It's been a journey, because I did become IT at the University of Zululand, which I did my first year there. I then went to the University of Johannesburg, and the standards are quite different. Well, first year is a bit easy for everyone. But second year and third year, that's where you really see the crux of the matter. Where you have to, I mean, at the University of Johannesburg, we had to know programming languages by head when you were writing a test or an exam. And trust me, that's not easy. You are not allowed to Google anything. You must know your programming language by head. So if they say you need to create a program for, let's say, a banking program or a customer relationship management program, you then need to know it by head, how you're gonna structure it, the sequences you're gonna use, So I then studied there, got my degree. Then I had to come back home because we didn't have the luxury for me to rent a place while I'm looking for work, which is a reality for most South Africans. So I came back home, and when I was at home, I have an uncle who has a PR company, and he's also a manager of a radio station. So he then started coming to me and saying he's got clients who want business cards, people that want letterheads. So the company basically started there with graphic design, where I used to do a bit of graphic design for him, who would then split the money 50-50. I would do the designing, he would do the printing, and then when the client pays it, I would get my portion of the money. I then got a job back in Johannesburg, and I was with, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name the company, but I was with them for 6 years. So while I was part of the company there, I was a software developer and as well as an administrator of their intranet. So it was quite limiting and frustrating at the same time, because I felt like I was not even using most of the skills I had acquired from the University of Johannesburg. So I then eventually decided, okay, I started the company while I was still working there, which was also a challenge because I would get a client who wants a website. I would only be able to work on the website after hours or on Saturdays or Fridays. So that was not really working for me. And eventually in 2019, I then decided to take the leap of faith, and I decided to resign and focus on Uniqova. So now I'm running Uniqova full time, and taking that leap of faith has actually proven to be quite fruitful, in the sense that some of the projects or the clients I've had, I would not have had them if I was still working and running my company on the side.
Wow. Yo, what a journey. And you are right. Sometimes I think you do need to just, leave that comfort zone, leave that net, and, um, get into it. So, Lubabalo, for somebody who is unfamiliar, right, with what you do as a software development company, what exactly does that entail? What does that mean?
So when we talk about software development, we basically, in a layman's term, you are talking about how you bring technology together to achieve a specific outcome to improve how people do things. And that's how I would simply explain it to someone. So my company does that in a nutshell. We do websites, mobile apps. Now I'm also doing artificial intelligence and machine learning. I was working on a very exciting project. I participated in what we call hackathons. I'm sure you've heard about them. Last year, around, I think it was around November, where then I created an augmented reality app to solve the music piracy issue, which has been there for a while. So, although that project has not really kicked off because it's in a prototype phase where you are still developing something. With the hackathon, you only given a couple of hours to come up with a solution, and you have to present to them whatever you've done within those hours. So I created that augmented reality app, and it works. It does deal with the music piracy issue, but because of how many projects Uniqova is busy working on, that project is still in development phase.
No, that's really exciting. Clearly, it involves a lot of various different things. And you touched slightly on the fact that you are working with, artificial intelligence. And you are also one of you mentioned that, Unicova is busy with various different things. But one thing that I found interesting is that you are developing an application that helps deal with food insecurity and poverty using the fourth industrial revolution technology such as machine learning and artificial intelligence to improve the lives of gardeners and homesteads and small and large scale farmers. Can you tell us more about this? Because this is obviously very important and very applicable in this day and age. What is that project about?
Yeah. So the what drives Uniqova basically is that it's a company that's socially inspired but technologically driven. So what we do is then look at what is out there with that's a social issue that we can improve using technology. So, and agriculture is one of those issues where people are dealing with things such as crop loss, natural disasters, and something that they have to face. I know now there was a rain which really messed up people's harvest, for a lack of a better word. So I started with the crop inspection aspect of the application. And then I had a meeting with the farmer, a very smart lady who's into farming and is a humanitarian and is passionate about food insecurity. and ensuring that there's food security in each household. She used to be in the media industry, but now she's a fully fledged farmer. Her name is Tulufelo, which um, okay, the surname does get to me a bit, but it's Tulufelo, which Meng might have it a bit wrong because of the pronunciation. So the I had my initial meeting with her, and she gave me feedback on the app to say, no, it's a great app. I should consider this and that on the app because I'm a software developer, and unfortunately I've never had exposure to farming. So it was important that I have that meeting with her, and I realized that having her on board actually would really take the app a long way, because now I would not be developing the application from a software developer's perspective, but I would have a farmer who knows what's happening on the ground, who's dealing with exactly what I'm trying to solve. That's when then we went back to what they call the ideation phase, where you play around a couple of ideas, and so that's when the machine learning and the artificial intelligence aspect of the application came about, uh, because currently people don't know, they want to identify seedlings and seeds, but those applications are only available in English and other languages, but they're not available in our indigenous languages. So that's one of the things the application does. It it has an image detection ability that then allows the person to select what indigenous language they want to use. It then has also things like your predictive analytics and a whole lot that we are working on. So it's really a project that I'm proud of, and I can't wait for it to be out there, because we have not really launched it at this point.
Wow. No, this sounds so fantastic. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited about the work that you do. And probably I'm biased because I work, my research is in the agriculture sector, and just understanding some of those like disconnects that, some of the issues and troubles that people in the sector face, and you developing sort of a solution for this is so, so important. So I wish you all of the best. And I love how you're working with you identifying the right people to sort of help you achieve this mission. So kudos to you. I am definitely sure that it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And Lubabalo, we've been speaking a lot about your work in terms of being in the science or the tech field, right? So I just want to move this conversation a little bit further, that apart from these amazing things that you're already doing, you're doing even more amazing things. you know you are number one, well, one of the many things, you are National Development Plan, or NDP 2030 Youth Ambassador, as well as you are a well-renowned and multi-award winning Toastmasters International speaker and leader, which is just amazing. Look at all the caliber that we have on this show, first of all. Please, can you tell us more about this work that you do and what it all means? That's so fascinating.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity. It's a really amazing thing. So the National Development Plan 2030 is basically, so we have what is called the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So each country then has its own goals. And in South Africa, we've named ours the National Development Plan. And the goals are to be achieved by the year 2030. So how it came about that I'm now a National Development Plan Youth Ambassador. I first won the NYDA, National Youth Development Agency awards. I got second place. Then the government then realized that there's actually great things that I'm doing as an individual. And then I was then selected amongst other young people who are doing great things in our wonderful country as an NDB ambassador. So the NDB ambassador role is very important because it looks at things like your poverty, to eradicate poverty, to make sure that there's sufficient health care by 2030, to make sure that there's employment for everyone, good employment, not just basic employment that is not fulfilling people's needs, but great employment. There's actually 14 goals. I'm trying to remember all of them by head, but yeah, clearly that's becoming an impossible mission. But that's the bigger picture of the NDB role, to say that the government has realized that whatever I as Lubabalo does has an impact, has an outward impact, not only for my family and the people around me, but for the entirety of our wonderful country, South Africa, and the countries that are part of the SDGs, which is the Sustainable Development Goals. So I was chosen to be the ambassador back in 2018, where it was the program, which is the NTP Ambassador Program, was officially launched by the Department of Learning, Monitoring and Evaluation. At that time, it was under the Minister of it was under Minister Jeff Katebe's leadership. So I've been part of that since 2018. And then in terms of Toastmasters, I have been a Toastmaster since October 2013. And being a Toastmaster is also another wonderful thing, because the journey sharpens my leadership skills as well as my public speaking skills. And I've also gotten a couple of awards through my journey as a Toastmaster, and it's great because it's something which is done internationally. I mean, Toastmasters, I think right now we are looking at 32,000 plus members all over the world. The headquarters are in New York. There's somewhere in New York, in one of the states.
Wow, that's so many achievements, so many amazing things. You are really doing the most, and it's really, really inspiring that you're able to balance all that you do. Do you think there's like an intersection between everything that you do, all the work that you do?
Definitely, because my role as an NDP youth ambassador requires leadership, and Toastmasters trains me to be a great leader. it also requires me to be a good speaker. I've had a few opportunities to be on TV and speak about it. And if it wasn't for Toastmasters, I would have honestly battled. Also, there's definitely an intersection between the different routes.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can almost see that it, like, some of the soft skills or the skills that you learn from this kind of feeds into your other various roles, which is actually quite beautiful. And I think that's why it's so important, even though it's hard, of course, doing everything. I'm sure you can attest to that, like doing all of these
Definitely.
amazing things and
It's
being this
not
very
easy.
amazing person. It's not easy, hey?
Not.
So what keeps you sane? What keeps you sane in the storm that all of this is?
Yeah, it's what can you say is the end result. It's hard. It's easy for you to lose heart during the process. You know, let me make an example. Aaron, for example, you ladies use makeup, so you can maybe lose heart when you're busy applying the makeup and it's now 30 minutes you've done a portion of your face and you think, yo, this is taking too long. But the end result of you doing your entire face with the face beat would be amazing, you know. So life is like that at times. When you're going through the process, when you're busy developing that program or trying to find a cure for that um, sickness or disease, it will not always be easy. But because you have your eyes set on the end results, you you get encouraged to say, okay, I know that things may not be easy right now and I may be feeling like giving up, but at the end I know I'm gonna prosper. And obviously you need to also read a lot, you need to watch read about other people who've gone through what you've gone through as well, you know. You then realize that you are not the only one who's gone through this. Other people have battled for years, but now look at them, they're billionaires, they've achieved what they wanted to do. You know, so I mean, you look at one of the people that inspires me lately is Jack Ma. You know, if you read his story, how he battled to get employment for years, and now he's a billionaire after battling for years. You look at their stories and you realize that, you know what, despite the challenges that you're going through in the process, at the end you are going to conquer.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really, that just sums up everything in terms of even just inspiring people, that at the end it's difficult, but one way or another we are gonna, we're gonna conquer. And Lubabalo, your story has just been amazing. And you mentioned earlier that as you tell us about your story, we will understand and we'll hear how you turned, what, an unfolding miracle, right? That's the title of the book. Yes, and you did. And you unfolded so many aspects of yourself that showed us of the miracle in terms of all of the amazing things that you've done. Because, God forbid, at 10 years old, everything could have stopped. But here you are, so many years later, touching lives, improving lives, inspiring lives. So thank you so much for your journey and for sharing the miracle that was your life. It's been such an honor having you on the show today.
It's been an honor being on the show. and sharing my story as well.
Yeah, for sure. And to everybody else who's tuned in today, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl and with an E. Until next time, goodbye.